Hey everyone, it's Blake, and today I'm going to be giving kind of the Mile High overview of LD as an event. And This video is mostly going to be directing you towards other videos, and I'm planning on making a little playlist that's like the starter pack, which will eventually essentially start with this video and then walk you through the other videos I refer you to in this um, intro video. And the idea being you can watch that playlist beginning to end and at least be ready to start watching and even potentially competing, writing cases, and participating in LD debate. So, what is LD? The name is an abbreviation of Lincoln Douglas, which was a famous set of debates during the presidential election. Um, in which Abraham Lincoln was elected. Stephen Douglas was running against him, and they had these one-on-one debates for the presidency. And the LD format is essentially inspired by those presidential debates. LD nowadays is a one versus one debate, so one person on each side. It is most often centered on what ought to be done, so that most often brings along a moral connotation. So a discussion about ethics. The round lasts about 45 minutes total. We call the two sides AF, short for affirmative, and neg, short for negative. So the affirmative agrees with the topic, and the negative disagrees with the topic. But it's important to note that all debaters will debate both sides at every tournament. It's not the case where you just pick, okay, on this topic I want to be AF and you're AF every time. That's not the case. You have to prepare to debate both sides, and you will debate both sides at every tournament you attend. And both sides will essentially present a case and refute their opponent's case, and then try to defend their case, and so on and so forth. And we'll talk about that speech by speech in just a little bit. So, common features of all of the debate formats. So this is true of policy debate, public forum debate, and Lincoln Douglas debate. For a certain time period, there is a topic given by the NSDA, that's the National Speech and Debate Association. So that same organization gives the topic for all of the major debate events. And I have a video on approaching a topic that's basically, okay, the topic just came out. How do you start your brainstorming and researching and all that kind of stuff? Arguments have the same basic parts, so see the parts of an argument video to see an explanation of what those are. The Cliff's Notes version is that it's claim, warrant, impact. The claim is what you are asserting, the warrant is why it is true, and the impact is why it matters. Cases are constructed using pieces of evidence called cards. So we call an individual piece of evidence a card, and we call preparing an individual piece of evidence cutting a card. And so I have a video called How to Cut a Card that'll walk you through step by step how to prepare a piece of evidence once you found it through your research skills. Argumentation is generally similar in different debate formats in that they generally use the same terms, the same jargon, the same tools in the toolbox in understanding how to respond to your opponent's case and refute their arguments. So I have a video called Basics of Response that walks through kind of those foundational terms and tools in your toolbox that you should have going into your first debate. More common features of debate formats. Weighing between impacts is very important. So weighing between impacts is basically telling me what thing matters the most. So if the AF is saying that, the resolution is important to, the resolution is another word for topic, that the topic is important for preventing global warming, and the neg says that doing the topic will lead to nuclear war. How do I decide whether nuclear war or global warming is a bigger threat? Well, they have to weigh between them. And so I have a video called Weighing that just goes over the nuances of how to make that argument that your impact matters more than your opponent's. There are cross-examination periods. So just like in courtrooms, cross-examination means that you're asking questions of the other side. I have a video called cross-examination strategy that is basically just a guide on like how to use that time more effectively. Comparison of evidence is similar. So say that you cut a card that says something that exactly contradicts your opponent's card. You don't just get to say, I read mine second, so you believe mine. You have to provide actual reasons why the evidence is of higher quality. And so the evidence comparison video will explain how you do that. And you take notes on the round the same way. We call taking notes in a debate flowing. And so the video on flowing will walk you through how to organize your notes on each speech based on who's speaking and what case they're talking about. And that organization and that note taking will enable you to make more specific, nuanced arguments throughout the round. Some unique features of LD. LD has a unique focus on morality and philosophy that isn't that prevalent in other formats of debate. LD is definitely the most morally focused as opposed to practically focused. So I have a whole playlist called the content playlist that is essentially covering some of those moral concepts that are really important for LD. LD also has this thing called framework, which is basically when you take an abstract ethical theory and justify why that ethical theory is the lens through which we should view the discussion of the topic. And so I have a video on writing your framework called Constructing a Framework that tells you how to basically set up that lens, and a video called Framework Debate that basically tells you how to argue that your opponent's lens is bad and that your lens is better. So framework is essentially saying, according to this moral theory, like the moral theory of structural violence, everyday impacts of oppression and discrimination need to come first. And so that's the lens through which we should view the topic, is preventing those everyday instances of violence. So that's an example of kind of what framework is. Another unique feature of LD is kind of this spectrum of progressivity. So generally we can call debate events more traditional or more progressive. So for instance, public forum is typically a little bit more traditional. Delivery style is very important. It's less common to talk at full speed or spread. It is more focused on defending the resolution versus opposing the resolution in a very traditional pro versus cons sense. Whereas progressive debate gets a little bit more meta. The practice of spreading or talking really fast, speed reading, spreading, is commonplace. And I kind of set up this spectrum because in LD, you have the ability to do traditional or progressive or anywhere in between. So I kind of placed these different structures of arguments on kind of how I personally would rank them from traditional to progressive. Of course, this is just my opinion, so don't take it as absolute fact that this is the order from traditional to progressive, but I have a video on everything listed here. So I have a traditional casing video that will talk about your V/C or value criterion casing. DAs, which are disads, intro to disadvantages. CPs, which are counterplans, intro to counterplans. Policy AF, which is a video I'm currently working on and hopefully will be out soon. T/theory. T is short for topicality, so topicality/theory. There's an intro to video on that. And K, or critique, KRITIK, which is influenced by the German spelling of the word. So that I have an intro to critiques video as well. So when you are starting out, absolutely 100% every single debater should start out on the traditional side. You need to get your traditional skills, your foundational skills down first before you start to venture into the progressive stuff. In the same way that you wouldn't want to learn how to ski on a black diamond slope, you wouldn't want to learn how to debate on a K debate. It's much better to start with the value criterion, traditional casing, that kind of stuff. But when you feel like you are ready, those other videos on the channel about disads, counterplans, policy AFs, T theory, and Ks, those are all there for reference. So let's talk a little bit about the speech times, what an LD round looks like. So the speech times are 6-3, 7-3, 4-6-3. Let's talk a little bit about each speech individually. So the first 6-minute speech is the AF constructive, and all that happens for those whole 6 minutes is that the AF reads their case. So you'll have to check out the intro or the traditional casing video in order to understand how we structure a case. But essentially, you are reading cards or evidence for the entirety of that 6 minutes. And then after that, there's a 3-minute cross-ex period where the negative debater is going to ask questions of the AF. And that makes sense because the affirmative has just read their case, so they're the only ones that would be able to answer questions, and the neg gets to ask questions because they need to clarify the case that was just read. So in the first cross-examination period, the negative debater asks the affirmative debater questions. And then there is the 7-minute negative constructive, which is a little bit of a misnomer because whereas the AF constructive was only about reading case, the neg constructive is a little over half about reading case and a little under half about refuting the affirmative's case. So generally, I recommend a 4-3 time split. So you spend 4 minutes reading your own cards, reading your own case. The traditional casing video talks about what neg case structure is like as well. And then the last 3 minutes of the 7-minute speech are spent arguing why the affirmative's case is flawed. So that's more like the basics of response and evidence comparison videos. And then the AF gets to ask the neg some questions for 3 minutes. Just like the first cross-examination period, this is one direction. So the AF is always asking, the neg is always answering. The neg should not be asking questions, and the AF should not be answering questions during this second cross-examination period. And then we have the 4-minute first AF rebuttal. So that speech is going to defend the AF case against the arguments made in the neg constructive and argue against or why the negative case is wrong or flawed. So again, the basics of response evidence comparison, weighing kind of stuff. And then the 6-minute negative rebuttal is going to defend the neg case against the arguments made in the first affirmative rebuttal, refute the AF case by extending and reiterating the arguments against the AF case that were made in the 7-minute negative constructive, and then give voters or the basic reasons why the neg is winning the round and why the judge should vote for them, hence the name voters. And the last speech is a 3-minute second AF rebuttal where the affirmative debater will defend the AF case, refute the neg case by extending and summarizing and implicating the arguments made in the first AF rebuttal, and then end by giving voters, which are just the reasons why the AF is winning the round and the judge should vote for them. So we like to use a lot of shorthand and abbreviation because saying affirmative, constructive, first AF rebuttal, neg rebuttal, all that can be kind of cumbersome, especially in round. So we abbreviate that to acronyms. So the affirmative constructive is also called the AC, neg constructive NC, first AF rebuttal, 1AR, neg rebuttal, NR, or sometimes just the 2N for second neg speech. And then the second AF rebuttal is the 2AR. So the speech goes AC, CX, NC, CX, 1AR, 2N, 2AR. And that is essentially the whole round, with the addition of each debater gets 4 minutes of time that they can split up anywhere in the round, and split however they choose that is used for preparation. So to come up with the arguments against your opponent's case, you have prep time. It's 4 minutes, and you can use it however you want. Typically, it is used by the neg before the NC and before the 2N, obviously, before both of their speeches, right? Because they have to do refutation in both of those speeches. For the AF debater, it is used before the 1AR and the 2AR, because those are the speeches where you're having to come up with stuff on the spot, whereas the AC is just reading the pre-prepared case. And the time split is really completely up to you. You can use 2 minutes before your 1AR, 2 minutes before your 2AR, 3 minutes before your NC, 1 minute before your 2N. You can do any combination. You can get down to the seconds. You can say, I'm going to use 1 minute and 27 seconds or whatever. There's really no restrictions on how you split up and how you distribute the prep time throughout the round. So some final thoughts, things that are important if you're just getting started with LD debate. Rounds are evaluated based on 2 things. So one side will win, one side will lose. But both sides will also be assigned speaker points, which are on a scale of up to 30. The typical range is 25 to 30. You typically only see speaks below 25 if there are like ethical concerns or like plagiarism or things like that. Generally speaking, speaker points range from 25 to 30. and those are used to break ties when ranking debaters. So if you have two debaters that have both won 3 rounds and lost 1 round, whoever has the higher total speaks will be ranked higher. The topics for LD change every 2 months, so September to October, November to December, January to February, and March to April. And those topics are available at speechanddebate.org/topics. That's the NSDA website, so that also will have some other good resources for you. There are novice divisions at most tournaments. Novice is defined in debate as the first year of high school speech and debate. So it's not like, sports where you have the JV and the varsity and you have to audition or try out. It's basically just based on time. So when you're just starting out, it's your first year competing in high school debate, you are a novice, and then you can make the decision to jump to varsity at any time, but by the time you reach your second year of competitive speech and debate, you have to compete in varsity. But theoretically, if partway through your first year you decided you wanted to bump up out of novice and into varsity, you absolutely can do that. But there's no going backwards. Once you start varsity, you stay varsity. Generally speaking, if I could give one piece of advice to every LD debater, it would be that framework and weighing are the keys to success. That'll make more sense when you watch those videos and get a more in-depth understanding of those ideas. But the framework is like how we decide what matters, and then weighing is arguing that your offense matters under that framework. So if your offense matters the most and it meets the framework, which tells me what kind of things do matter, then I vote for you. So framing and weighing are the keys to success in LD. There is a common practice of case sharing in LD. So you might email your case to an opponent right before round, or there's websites like SpeechDrop that allow you to set up rooms for document sharing. This is not a constitutive rule of debate. It's not something that is required or mandatory, but it's something worth mentioning, just so if you get to round and they say, your opponent says, do you want to share cases? Or sometimes it's called flashing because it used to be done using flash drives. So if somebody says, do you want to set up an email chain? Do you want to set up a speech drop? Do you want to share cases? Do you want to disclose? All of these things basically just mean sharing your case with each other during the round, and that is a completely normal practice. And just something to be aware of. And lastly, here are some helpful websites or resources to get you started. So tabroom.com is where most tournaments are hosted. So that is where you can register for tournaments, and where it'll tell you who you're debating, what room you're in, whether you're AF or neg, show you the results at the end of the round, and all of that kind of technical stuff. So Tabroom is kind of the place where tournaments are managed. The wiki, which is opencaselist.com/HSLD23 for the 2023 case list, or you can, put 2.4 for 2024 or 2.2 for 2022, depending on whichever one you're looking for. And that is basically everybody that is willing to disclose their cases to the entire debate community will post their cases on the wiki. So there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of cases and case examples for you to look at the wiki. Mostly it's to be used for inspiration. It is not, obviously you don't want to steal other people's work. You don't want to plagiarize other people's work, but you can use it to help you find articles, find resources, see examples of formatting, stuff like that, especially when you're just starting out. And lastly, Circuit Debate at circuitdebater.org is a website that essentially allows you to see cases from past debaters who have since graduated. So the case archive goes back many, many years. And it also has some summary articles about debate formats and some of the debate content. So if you want more detail or just to hear those things explained in another way, Circuit Debater is a great resource for that. That's all I have for this video. Like I said, hopefully this will be part of a starter pack playlist set that will kind of be a crash course for how to get started in LD. If you have any questions about this or anything related to LD, feel free to reach out, leave a comment or anything like that. Otherwise, have a good rest of your day.